Nigeria. Peter Pan's book on how to be a Nigerian has a wonderful, delightful chapter, chapter 4, on the chairman, and how Nigerians are lost without their chairman, and it's always a man of God. So it's good to see how we are lost as to how to start without a chairman this morning. But that's part of the learning we've got to do. The wish for John. Happy birthday. Since we are sharing freedom of information, I wasn't able to make your landmark birthday. What I intend to do in the few moments available to me is really to share a set of underlying remarks about context and consequences. And I want to start this way by thanking the organizers of the Wallace Center and also Professor Jay for what was a remarkable delivery and stream of consciousness. We're a very oral society. And that's where I want to start. It's all well and good to abuse governors and prime ministers and presidents. But this morning, I hope, and that's, I believe, the lesson that Wole Soyinka has taught us, I hope we can begin to assume responsibility. Because the tyranny of rights cannot make progress without citizens who are willing to take responsibility. As a society in which oral delivery is the way of life, the FOI Act stands no chance. We are happy to tell stories, but absolutely unwilling to commit anything to paper, to create a record or a memory that can constitute evidence, because we are afraid that somebody somewhere is going to hold us accountable for the rumors we are about to spread. And because we love to trade in rumors and to trade in unsubstantiated tales and lack the rigour and the discipline to commit ourselves to paper, we prefer to hold other people accountable for responsibilities that we have abdicated. That's my first thing. And related to our commitment to an oral society is the fact that we have a fundamentally informal society. You cannot find records, even where they exist, you cannot find them. And where those records exist, somebody is committed to hiding them. I've got the privileged misfortune at the moment of being associated with a public institution. And every so often I've got staff and colleagues who come to me bearing one tale or the other. And I tell them, my grandfather always told me, don't listen to the story of the person who tells you and says, don't tell the other person. And so I tell them, are you willing for me to tell this person, or do you want to write it down for me? In nearly 100% of the cases, the answer is, Oga, please, sir. No vex, don't make you no tell her. And if you don't want me to tell the other person, and if you don't want to create a record of it, what do you want me to do with it? You don't even want me to say, you told me so. Now, this year, late last year, I was requested by one of the biggest, most respected professional institutions in Nigeria to lead an inquiry into their working methods. And I went to that believing no public, this is a professional organization that works on the basis of evidence. And what I saw was mind-boggling. I was at the head of a committee of 6. And it was a system of professionals committed to making sure there was no record of anything done in the association. And of staff who were instructed not to keep any records of what was done. I was obliged, having taken responsibility, having decided to do so, to submit a confidential report, which then got enlisted in intra-institutional politics and got leaked later. And in a sense, I'm glad it was leaked, because the story should out. But if you're committed to a society that is fundamentally informal, you should not complain about what the Freedom of Information Act has failed to achieve for you. And let me also say this. The Freedom of Information Act was passed in India. Now, at the end of that, what did we get? We were told it was an act of God. What was it? President Yar'Adua had awarded a contract for the dredging of the lower River Niger from Niger State to the estuary. Why? Because the lower River Niger had become silted. The silting of the lower River Niger had been building up since the last dredging happened in 1975. And the contract was supposed to increase the depth of the navigable depth of the lower River Niger from less than 1 meter to an average of between 2.5 to 3 meters. At an average of between 2.5 to 3 meters, the water that spread the riverbed of the River Niger from all the communities that were affected, going from Niger State to Bayelsa State, would not have happened because all of it would have ended up where? In the ocean. But look at all the local governments that were affected by the flooding. The match is 100%. You ask yourself then, what did God have to do with it? But because we are not willing to do the groundwork that is required on a day-to-day basis to make sure that we play our roles as citizens, we ascribe to God things that human beings inflict on one another. And that is why I refuse to use the word poverty in my work. Because poverty is a noun without agency. What happens in Nigeria is a transitive verb. It is called impoverishment. It is what human beings do to one another. I will show you is a transitive verb. I will pay that police officer to arrest you so that you will stay in jail and know that I am powerful. Is a transitive verb. I will deal with you and you will know that I'm a powerful lecturer and you will not be able to leave this school until I say so. Is a transitive verb. Go and hire a room in a hotel so that I will show you my members before you leave school. Is a transitive verb. And because we are avid practitioners of these transitive verbs, we don't want to take responsibility. Because we don't want to take responsibility, the Governor Fashola is a bad man. Goodluck Jonathan will always be to blame. Ogbeni is the problem in our country. But let us sit down and consider, do we have any role to play in this as citizens? And my view is that we do. We have abdicated our roles fundamentally. We do not wish to be bothered. That is not to say that the people who run government do not have a role. They do. And they've messed us up big time. In 2006, December 13th, the governor of Borno State, then, Ali Modushere, said, pretty much I'm quoting, and this day newspaper published this on its back page on the 14th of December 2007, that he does not care what the citizens of Borno State say about him, because there are fewer than 5% of people in Borno State who can read or write. And whatever you publish in your newspapers will not be read by these people because they're illiterate. Now, that's a governor. And it tells you one thing. There is an organic link between access to information and access to education. That organic link is fully recognized in our jurisprudence. In 1981, when the Court of Appeal ruled in the case of Okoje and Attorney General Lagos State on the question of return of the schools, of missionary schools back to their owner, the basis on which the Court of Appeal gave the order that the schools should be returned was the right of access to information. It founded proprietorship, private proprietorship of schools on access to information and linked it to access to education. And said you need an educated population to be able to manage the responsibilities that come with having information. 2 years later, in Basil Nanukebu against Attorney General of the Federation, which is the case that grounds the establishment of private universities in Nigeria, the Supreme Court again founded the capacity to establish private universities on what? The right to access to information, freedom of association, freedom of expression. Section 35 then of the Constitution, which is now Section 39. Now, what have we done about access to education? We are in a country in which, according to the UNESCO records, over 10 million kids are not in school and will not have access to school. The average young woman from the northeast of Nigeria will not go to school. If she goes to school, she will not spend more than 4 years. And when she comes out, her fate is likely to be as a dead cadaver in a mortuary trying to have her first baby. Why? Because we don't make access to reproductive health information available to them. If you talk about access to reproductive health information, people tell you you're promoting abortion. You're promoting evil. It is not our portion. And because it is not our portion, our daughters are dying, our wives are dying, our mothers are dying. We've got a country that's got perhaps the worst maternal mortality incidence in the world. In the northeast of Nigeria, it is about 1,600 deaths per 100,000 live births. Now, that is an incidence that beats any other national average in the world. Why? Because we're willing to make reproductive health information available at the point where women need it to save their lives. Men will decide. I have a very good friend whose only preoccupation on the editorial pages of this day is to legislate for women what will happen to their bodies. Every time I read my brother, it is about that woman and how God will curse her for trying to get access to reproductive health information. And I keep asking him, have you ever tried getting pregnant? If you have ever tried carrying a baby, maybe you can give us these lectures. But if you haven't, can you at least consider that a woman who finds herself in this situation is capable of taking rational decisions? And have you ever worked at trying to make reproductive health information available, making women available of the dangers, cognizant of the dangers they run, and using information as a prophylactic mechanism for managing maternal mortality and trying to reduce it? Our problems are many, and I don't think we can wish them away by, we're a country that love adjectives a lot, and we do not trade a lot in verbs. If we can find jabberdankies, we'll use it instead of jumping. And because of that, we really confuse ourselves quite often. And at the end of the day, freedom of information is about making citizenship work for us. And those of us who were involved in it, starting in 1993 and working through the conversations we had that led us to freedom of information, the drafting the bill under a military government then, was about what was the promise of Nigerian citizenship for us. We were, all of us who started the drafting in 1993-94, we were then in our 20s. We were just finished turning 20. And the question was, our parents had fought different battles. What is the defining battle of our time? And for us, it was citizenship. It was the promise, trying to reclaim the promise of citizenship for ourselves. Because we believed we did not have it in the aftermath of what happened with our movement of elections in 1993. And IOB was one of the leaders of the work then, and part of the inspiration. I see Ogaga here, who again was part of those early conversations. And I do hope that at some point in our lives, hopefully before we die, all of us can come together and begin to tell these stories and recall them and hand that over as part of an intangible legacy to those who come after us in there. And in that, let me say this. I mean, the story has been told about Tony Blair and the fact that in his book, which would have been titled, his autobiography actually, which would have been titled, which would have, but the title would have borrowed from Edith Piaf, Je ne regrette rien. He actually, the only regret he had was having signed an FOI law into act in the UK. And national security is one of those shibboleths that people use. When you listen or read the transcripts of the White House tapes, the conversation between Richard Nixon and Bob Haldeman in 1972 was about how they were going to use national security to cover everything. And I've heard a lot said here this morning about how defense and the military are doing great. Let me say this, and our military are going through difficult times, and I think they do deserve our support. People are doing badly across the board about FOI, across the board, including my own institution, the one that I'm associated with at the moment. Largely because public officers, civil servants, see that access to information endangers the way we run government. Government is a transaction. Look, everything is done at the last minute. If you know what is happening, you will block it. Now, why is everything done? Everything in government is an emergency. Because if you declare emergency, you have a cut. If government were to be normalized and things done according to plan, and you take your time to bring things, you end a lot of people's livelihoods. Now the FOI Act has a provision for proactive disclosure. There are 16 heads of proactive disclosure, including salary. And I can say that I am only one of 2 public officers in Nigeria that has their assets public. The other person is Chidi Odinkalu, the governor of Ekiti State. And I took the deliberate decision to make my poverty public because I don't want people thinking I am what I am not. I don't own anything. And I'm confident not owning anything. And I don't want you coming to me and making demands on me I cannot fulfill. I'll give you my asset form and tell you I don't own nothing. But our people want to be what we are not. When I went to the staff of the public institution with which I'm associated and told them, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Let your people know what you are worth, and they will not make demands. They say, Shaman, no, please, don't do this, you go with us. How can you expect us to disclose our salary? But your salary is poor. It can't even buy bloody tissue paper. If you give it to people and say, this is what I am worth, please don't disturb me, they will abuse it. They'll say you're wicked, but they will leave you alone. And because they leave you alone, you prioritize properly, you do not live beyond your means. But most of us here, we want to live beyond our means. We want to attend the next Owambe party. We want to wear the gele that is pointed that way. We want to wear this one and the other one. We want to own the latest car. We want BlackBerry 10. We want the latest tablet technology. We want everything. Because we do that, we create the political economy that makes it impossible to run honest government. So when I hear people complain about corruption, mediocrity, I laugh. Because we are not prepared to do what it takes to create an honest society. If we are prepared to do what it takes to create an honest society, I'm not going to go begging civil servants to make their grade levels public, because that is mandated by law. It is supposed to save you. It is supposed to make sure that you're not subject to unnecessary demands. When you are not subject to unnecessary demands, you progress in your work. Because you progress in your work, you'll make more money at the end of the day. You're much more marketable. Over time, you grow. But we have a capacity to subvert ourselves to short-term considerations. And that is the Nigerian problem. Let's not focus on the politicians. Let's think, what can we do as citizens in the respective areas over which we have control to change these things? And in doing so, I want to finally add 3 words to this. 2 words. Impunity, I think, has been used here this morning. And I want to add 2 more words: identity and integrity. We are all marginalized. Every Nigerian is marginalized. Southwest is marginalized. Northeast is marginalized. South-South is marginalized. Southeast, Middle Belt, Northwest. Everybody is suffering from marginalization. Women too. The men, the young people, the ones with gay. Everybody is suffering from marginalization. Because we are all marginalized, we deploy corruption as a mechanism for redressing our perceptions of marginalization. Every one of us practices corruption when it suits us. Why? Because rules are not supposed to apply to us, they're supposed to apply to other people. Rules are not for Prosodei, they're for Chidi. Rules are not for Chidi, they're for Hafsa. Because of that, when it comes to applying rules to our relations, to our business associates, to our friends, we find a way to corrupt the processes. We are incapable and unwilling to apply rules as blind, to follow rules wherever they go, to follow facts wherever they lead us, irrespective of who is affected. I'm going through it at the moment, right? So I know, I see it every day, in public service, in NGOs, and in private life, until we make sure that rules are inoculated against identity. Our FOI Act has no chance of success. Thank you.